Okay, so we're going to take a look at these unequal sharing questions. Now, before we begin, let's speak a little bit about unequal sharing. So, you as a student might be familiar with equal sharing, or as it's more commonly known, division. So, division, let's look at an example of that. So, if I had 24 sweets and I wanted to share them equally among 2 students, each student will get 12 sweets, right? So each student would have gotten the same amount. Unequal sharing would essentially mean that one student gets more than the other, and at the same time one student would have gotten less than the other, right? So for example, that same 24 sweets, one student could have gotten 18 sweets and another student would have gotten 6 sweets, right? So one got more than the other, and that's why it's called unequal sharing. So let's take a look at the first question. Okay, so the first question says 53 toy cars were shared between Harry and Jacob. Jacob gets 5 less toy cars than Harry, and then the question ultimately asks how many toy cars does Jacob get and Harry get. So they want the number of toy cars that each boy gets. So our first step with any unequal sharing question is to figure out who got the least in the question. So in this case, Jacob would have gotten the least. He gets 5 less toy cars than Harry. So what we're going to do with that information, I'm going to put J is equal to, and I'm going to let a box represent Jacob's amount, right? So this box that we just drew here is going to represent the number of toy cars that Jacob has. Our next step is to figure out everyone else's amount in terms of the person who got the least. So in this case, we figure out Harry's amount, right? Now, the question says Jacob got 5 less than Harry, which means that Harry would have gotten 5 more than Jacob, right? And this now is everybody's number in terms of box. So what's our next step? Well, our next step is to add everybody's number and put it equal to the total, right? So if you think about it, it makes sense. Jacob's amount plus Harry's amount added up is going to actually be equal to the total amount we had before sharing. Okay? So when we add these two up, we get box. Let me draw a box. Let's make that a little better. So box plus another box plus 5, and that's going to be equal to our total 53, right? And now we can actually figure out what box is equal to. So 2 times box, box plus box is 2 times box, plus 5 would be 53, which means that 2 times box would be 53 minus 5, which is equal to 53 minus 5 would be equal to 48. If you need to work that out on the side, you can. Okay, on the side of your working, you can. So we have that 2 times box is equal to 48. So 2 times box is equal to 48, which means that box, in order to find what 1 times box is, we just divide 48 by 2. So we'll have 48 divided by 2, which is 24. And do you remember what we said box was? Box was Jacob's amount. And we have here that it's equal to 24. So that means that Jacob would have gotten 24 toy cars. So Jacob would have gotten 24 toy cars. And Harry now, we can figure out because Harry is box plus 5, right? Just 24 plus 5. And that's 29 toy cars. And that is your answer for parts A and B of question 1. Okay, so let's move on to question 2. Question 2 says, Frankie shares 58 lollipops among himself, Christina, and Adrian. Frankie gets 4 more than Adrian, 4 more lollipops than Adrian, and Christina gets 6 more than Adrian. Question asks, how many lollipops does each person get? So, the first step, as usual, is to find out who has the least number of lollipops. So, reading from the second sentence, we see that Frankie gets 4 more than Adrian, and Christina would get 6 more than Adrian. So, Frankie will get more than Adrian. That symbol means more than. And also, Christina gets more than Adrian. She gets 6 more than Adrian. So, this tells us that both Frankie and Christina have more than Adrian, which means that Adrian has the least amount. Okay. So, Adrian has the least amount. So, what we do with that is that we put Adrian's number equal to some symbol and we use box. Right, so this represents an unknown number of lollipops that Adrian has. Our next step is to figure out everybody else's number in terms of box. So Frankie, we'll start with Frankie. It says that Frankie gets 4 more than Adrian. So Frankie would be box plus 4. And Christina gets 6 more than Adrian. Christina gets 6 more than Adrian. Christina would have box plus 6. Now in the first question, I would have added everything together, set it equal to the total, and worked out the value of box from there. What I'm going to do is a simplified version of this. All you need to do to find box is add the extra numbers that you see, so the numbers that are not boxes, right? So this 4 and this 6, we'll add this up, 4 plus 6, and then what you're going to do is take that away from the total. So we had 58 lollipops initially, and divide that by the number of boxes you see. Not the number of people, the number of boxes. Okay. In this case, we have 3 boxes. And this would give us a value of 1 box. So, what we do is we work out what's in the brackets first. So we have 58 minus 4 plus 6, which is 10. And we'll put that all over 3. Next, 58 minus 10, so we'll work out the numerator first. 58 minus 10 is 48. 48 divided by 3 is 16. So this working tells us that the value of box is equal to 16. And remember, Adrian's number is equal to box. So, Adrian would get 16 lollipops. Well, once we know Adrian's number of lollipops, we can easily figure out Frankie and Christina. So Frankie would have 16 plus 4. He gets 4 more lollipops than Adrian, so he gets 20 lollipops. And Christina gets 6 more lollipops than Adrian. So she gets 16 plus 6, which is 22 lollipops. So that's everybody's number of lollipops, and the last thing we should be doing is checking over. So it's easy to check these over. What we need to do is add everyone's numbers all together and see if we get the total we had before sharing, right, which is 58 in this case. So this means that 16 plus 20 plus 22 should be equal to 58. So let's check that. 6 plus 2 is 8, and 1 plus 2 is 3, and 3 plus 2 is 5. So we know that our sum works out, it's correct. So that's question 2. Okay, so let's move on to question 3. A triangle of perimeter 136 centimeters has sides labeled X, Y, and Z. Side Y is 4 centimeters shorter than side X, and side X is 8 centimeters shorter than side Z. So what is the length of each side? Now in this case, we need to figure out, of course we say we need to figure out who gets the least. In this case, we'll figure out which side is the shortest, X, Y, or Z. So let's start with the second sentence. It says side Y is 4 centimeters shorter than side X, right, which means that side Y is shorter than side X. So I'm going to make a quick sketch of the sides. So let's say this side, well, let me do it in a different color. Let's say this is side Y, right, and this is side X, right, and side X now is 8 centimeters shorter than side Z. So we had that this was Y, this was X. X is now 8 centimeters shorter than Z. So that means that Z is going to be longer than X. So from here we can clearly see which side is the shortest. Y is the shortest, which means that we'll put the length of Y equal to box. So side Y is the shortest side. So that means that Y is going to be equal to box. Now from here it says that Y is 4 centimeters shorter than side X, which means that X is going to be box plus 4. X is going to be 4 centimeters longer than side Y. And it says that side X is 8 centimeters shorter than side Z. So that means that Z is going to be 8 centimeters longer than side X, which means that Z's length is now not going to be box plus 8. It's going to be box plus 4 plus 8, since it says that Z is 8 centimeters. Well, X is 8 centimeters shorter than Z, which means that Z is 8 centimeters longer than X. And X is not equal to box, X is equal to box plus 4. So Z will be box plus 4 plus 8. Right. Now from here, the idea is the same. What we're going to do is add all the extra numbers we see here, take it away from the total, and divide by the number of boxes, and that would give us what box is equal to. So box is going to be equal to 136, that's the perimeter of the triangle, minus 4 plus 4 plus 8, all divided by 3. So this is 136 minus 16 divided by 3, which is 120 divided by 3, which is 40. Right, so box is equal to 40, which means now that y would be equal to 40 centimeters. X is going to be equal to 40 plus 4 centimeters, which is 44 centimeters. And z is going to be equal to x plus 8, not y plus 8. So z is going to be equal to 44 plus 8, which is 52 centimeters. Now again, all that's left to do is check over. So we have 40 plus 44 plus 52, and that should add up to the perimeter of the triangle, right? So 136, so let's see. 0 plus 4 is 4, 4 plus 2 is 6, 4 plus 4 is 8, 8 plus 5 is 13. So our sum is correct. Okay, so moving on to question 4. Question 4 says, Michael cuts a 135 centimeter long string into 2 pieces. One piece is twice as long as the other. What is the length of each piece? Okay, so this question says one piece is twice as long as the other, and it did not give us specific names for the pieces, so I'm just going to call them the shorter piece and the longer piece. So we call them shorter and longer, and of course the shorter piece, we'll put that equal to box. And now let's try to figure out the length of the longer piece. So the question tells us that one piece is twice as long as the other. So it didn't tell us that one piece was a certain length longer than the other. It told us that it was twice as long as the other, which means that the longer piece, what I'm going to do is put it equal to 2 boxes, right? So whatever number this is, the longer piece is 2 times that amount. Not 2 centimeters more, but the amount multiplied by 2. Now from here, we figured out the length of each piece in terms of box. It's the same process. What we're going to do is there's no extra numbers on the outside, just boxes. So what we'll do is divide by the number of boxes. So that will give us the value of box. Box would be equal to 135 divided by 3. We have 3 boxes, that's why. So 135 divided by 3, which is 45. So box is 45, which means that the shorter piece is equal to 45 centimeters, and the longer piece, which is twice the length of the shorter piece, would be 45 multiplied by 2, which is 90 centimeters. And we can still check over. When we add 45 and 90, we should get 135. So we're adding 45 plus 90. We get 5 plus 0 is 5, and 4 plus 9 is 13. So we do get 135 centimeters, which is the length of the string before it was cut. And that tells us that our sum is correct. Okay, let's move on. So question 5 says, the width of a rectangle is 1/3 its length. If the perimeter of the rectangle is 32 centimeters, what is the area of the rectangle? Okay, so 3 pieces of information. The width is 1/3 of its length. The perimeter is 32 centimeters. And what they ask for is the area of the rectangle. So let's visualize that a bit. I will draw a rectangle. So we know that rectangles have two specific measurements, which is the length of the longer side called the length and the length of the shorter side called the width. Now, the question says that the width is 1/3 its length, which means that the width, of course, would be the shortest length or the shorter length in the rectangle. So we'll put that equal to box. Now, let's think about it with numbers. If the width was equal to, let's say, 4, then the length would be the number where 1/3 of the length, 1/3 of the length would be equal to 4. So in this case, the length would be 12, which means that the length is 3 times the width, as 12 would be 3 times 4. So to imagine it with another number, let's say the width is 5, then the length will be 15, right? And it would still be true because the width would be 1/3 of the length, which is 1/3 of 15, which is 5. So that's a way to visualize it with numbers. So now it says the perimeter of the rectangle is 32 centimeters. So I'm going to do this little diagram here, and what I'm going to do is fill in the lengths with boxes. This will help us count how many boxes there are in total. So for each length, along each length, I'm going to put 3 boxes because that is the value of the length. And along each width, I'm going to put 1 box. Right, now they told us the perimeter is 32 centimeters, which means the distance all around this rectangle, that's what perimeter means, the distance all around this rectangle is 32 centimeters. Now around this rectangle, let's count how many boxes we have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that means that 1 box, if 8 boxes would be equal to 32 centimeters, then 1 box would be 32 divided by 8, which is 4 centimeters. That means our width is 4 centimeters and our length is 4 times 2, 4 multiplied by 2, which is 8 centimeters. Now we found the width and the length of the rectangle, but the question does not stop there. It asks us for the area of the rectangle. And we know that the formula for area is length times width. And the length is 8 centimeters multiplied by the width, which is 4 centimeters. And 8 times 4 is 32 centimeters squared. Must remember the squared units. Right? So we actually have the same value of perimeter as we do area, but the difference is the units. Units for area would be centimeters squared. And that's the answer for question 5. Right, so that brings us to the end of the worksheet. Hope you learned something and you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching.